We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was produced, the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present. This episode contains discussion of suicide. If this raises any issues for you, support is available through the links and phone numbers in the show notes.
It's April 2009 and we're in southern Afghanistan. 28-year-old Damien Thomlinson is here with the Australian Defence Force. He's here, he's made it, just 4 years after ticking off his goal of becoming a commando. This elite group is tasked with the most physically demanding, mentally challenging and dangerous roles in the armed forces. He's working a night patrol when his unit drive over a Taliban IED. The bomb explodes, leaving Damien fighting for his life. He loses both of his legs and doctors say it's a miracle he wasn't killed. I'm at Middleton and this is Head Game. Today, Damien Thomlinson with his extraordinary story of reclaiming his life on his own terms. Damien Thomlinson, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on my podcast, Head Game. It's an honour to speak with one of my own, former Australian Defence Force, 2 Commando, an elite soldier, tours of Afghanistan, right up my street. I know that we're going to get on like a house on fire. Talk to me about your childhood and your upbringing. Were there any military routes for you to be pushed down when you were young, or did you just decide, right, I'm going to join the military at a young age and you just cracked on, or was there an influence in your life? Where did that all start?
Well, I grew up about an hour and a half north of Sydney, a place in the Central Coast called Terrigal, for those that are in Australia. Those that aren't, lovely place to visit, knock yourself out. And I don't know, I didn't feel like there was a lot of opportunity. I didn't feel too inspired, but I also sort of, I got confused a little bit between my passion and my hobby. Sport was a hobby as opposed to being like a passion or something that I should find to really work towards and strive at. And I just had the moment, I think, where I'd made a couple of bad decisions. I had a good group of friends. I had a really supportive group of people around me, but I sort of just made choices that I think, you kind of want to go against the grain a little when you're young. Kind of like, I'm going to do my own thing, and then realize that the further on you get, maybe the people around you that have got, 60 plus years experience are right. And
it's that rebellious side that we all have until it's knocked out of us, right?
Yeah, it's got to get beaten out of you somehow. And the really good influence in my life's always been my dad. He's always been great for me. My hero growing up, but we're very different people. We got totally different skill sets. Like the things that I go really well at school and saw as really easy things to do. I saw them as simple. He then saw, they were the bits that took a lot of effort. So he'd gone through getting his master's in applied science, and to me, I was making physics feel easy. So it was that sort of thing, but then not putting the effort in. I just didn't apply myself to anything, which, now I look back at it frustrates me because that's the only sort of what if. It was in me that I wanted something that was bigger, I thought I could. I don't know. I always thought you can call it delusions of grandeur, but it doesn't matter what room I walk into, I assume I can belong there. You know what I mean? And let's face it, a majority of the rooms that you walk into, as long as you look like you should be there and have an attitude like you should be there, no one's going to ask you why you're there. So
the chameleon effect, right?
Yeah, it's just just walk into it with the quiet confidence that if the guy asks you a question about why you're there, he's going to get escorted out. And I always sort of had that, but it was more and more, it was getting reinforced that it was totally unjustified. I just hadn't proven it. I didn't have the runs on the board. And I remember going to him after a few of his prophecies about me being a labourer and doing whatever coming true. I remember going and speaking to him about it and told me a story about wanting to be an architect and that he didn't have the right math scores. And, you know, your master's degree in applied science, there's maths involved. You know what I mean? So, and then he sort of finished it by going, see, no one can tell you what you want to do. I was like, okay, so what should I do? Just absolute crickets. There was nothing in the room, you know, and we had just had this moment of like looking at each other. You know, when you've known something all along, you just haven't wanted to face it. I think that was the moment where I decided, all right, now's my time to really like to face this one, you know, to make some form of difference and
to step up,
yeah,
or to step forward,
yeah, to give to you to really do. I don't know. I look at who I was before this next moment, and you know, I was really easy to. It was easy for me to go, oh, that's just not for me. You know, it's just not my thing, or I'll find something else. Like all just a quitter's mentality. And I remember when I went into the computer, I was too ashamed to use Dad's, so I used Mum's in the study and went in and sat down at it. And there's this really cool picture of my granddad, 83, rats at your Brook thing with his rack of medals, this little grin on his face. And I just looked at it and I was so proud. And then in the next second, I was just super ashamed. You know, like I'd done nothing that was even remotely close to being worthy. You know, there's people who they go, who would you speak to if you had the chance? That was 2001 had happened. This is in 2003, I think late 2003. And I thought, like, if I had the chance to talk to him, what am I going to talk about? You know, like, what am I going to, I can't really impress him with scoring a first grade 100. I mean, like, that's not, it really doesn't make a, you know, it's not the type of, I don't know. I just felt like so ashamed. And then,
do you feel a bit worthless?
yeah, well, I think so. Like, and I think it was sort of like as well, you know, I'd like to believe I'm a pretty overwhelmingly positive person. You know, like I'll tend to believe the positive thing regardless of how bad the circumstance that's in front of me is. And there was more and more evidence that was mounting that I was really wrong. You know, like that I was, yeah, that I was the person who, and this is the funny thing, like it took what happened later for me to understand that all of that was happening inside my head. None of it reflected reality. You know, like I don't know what someone's opinion of me is, and I don't care. And I shouldn't have then. You know, like I was premeditating what strangers I was working for thought or something of the sort when it was, you know, all of it was just happening internally. So I looked at the computer. There was a special forces direct recruiting scheme, and at that thing, I literally remember looking at the screen. 4 guys, they're on rotation 1 to Afghanistan. I find out later, just walking away from the screen, like just picture of their backs. And I was like, that's it. That will prove everyone who's said the thing like this. Not everyone can do that, but I'm going to keep going until it's done.
See, that's what I love about you, Damien, is that you looked at that and you didn't choose just an option. You chose the hardest option, the most elite option, and you just decided to jump in the deep end. How did you get on? Did you struggle? Were you treading water, or did you thrive in that environment?
I quite liked it. Like, I mean, part of it was me. You know, you kind of like, you know, it's going to be hard. Like, it belts everyone. If anyone ever says, "Oh, Special Forces selection didn't belt me," you're like, "Cool, you've never done it." It's just one of those things. But I think just like accepting the fact that it's going to be really difficult and it's going to stretch. Like, I enjoyed the fact that every single thing that I did was something that you can be proud of. You know, like I wasn't, and if you didn't, like, it's one of those no lose situations, because if you're not perfect at it the first time, it's harder than anything else you've ever done in your life. You don't have to be perfect at it first go. It's the effort of trying to like maintain, like build and maintain those standards the entire way through your career, which makes the difference. You know, when you start seeing those small bits of progress, and I just learned it was just this like positive reinforcing style thing. And I mean, you know, it's obviously it's possible, it's doable, you know, and they're looking for attributes, which I think team sport sets you up for. You know, I mean, part of it is like just for me, there was no way that I was ever, no matter how much it hurt, that's what a Special Forces soldier has to go through. To me, that was it. That's like, I don't.
It's turning up every day, committing every day,
Every day.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
People don't realize the sacrifice. And when I say sacrifice, I mean personal sacrifice.
Yeah. And I mean, the reality of that, the realities that you face during it, like I remember I was pretty like lucky when I did it. The only person who, I was looking out for at this stage was me. So, like, it still blows my mind how, because I've got a family now and I love them more than anything. But I didn't have, at that stage, I didn't have a girlfriend, I didn't have kids. There was just me in this battle of going, okay, cool, I got to turn up here. And, like, some of the things are such, like, gifts to the way that you handle adversity because you've got no choice at the time. It's a controlled environment, right? So you're not going to, like, die. If you do, you're pretty unlucky. But I remember like doing things like on our amphib course, we did it and it was freezing cold. We'd done this mud run at 5 a.m. Everyone had steam off them, like mud and steam. It was down in Melbourne, which is like Australia cold. It's not UK cold, but it's, so sort of cold. We're getting close-ish to the zeros. And the water just, oh God. I remember they had us jump in the water straight after it. We get out and they go, all right, go dry yourself off. You got an unachievable time to get back in that room ready to start your lessons. So everyone's like, you're running, you're doing all your different stuff and you're standing out there and you're ready to go in. And they said, why are you guys dry? Get in the water. And then you're like, all right, bang. And then bang, out of the water, straight into the lesson, trying to like write what you're doing.
Both sets of kit are wet.
Yeah, just everything wet, going, oh my God, like why? Trying to retain the information that you're sorting out in it. Like you don't get those sort of chances to stretch yourself in many places. You know what I mean? Like
in normal walks of life, there's no way in a million years you get pushed outside of your comfort zone like that.
Not a chance.
And how did you feel when you passed selection? What was your moment like when you got when you passed your selection process?
This was like probably the most relief I've felt in ages. You're sitting in this room and, part of building tension is, sensory deprivation. You know what I mean? So it's just sitting in silence while something you feel like it should be happening. You learn that should is a word that you can leave out of your vocabulary. It's pointless. But I remember sitting in there and they're counting names off and there's good operators standing up, walking out of the room. And then you're sort of looking back at who's left going, oh, he fell asleep doing this. I made a mistake on that. This guy did this. That guy was awesome, but could complain a bit. Like, you had all these little bits that you sort of look at and you genuinely didn't know. I remember Hans Fleer, he's a legend of the Australian Special Forces, was reading his What We've Done. And this is as we know, the Special Forces selection course and blah, blah, blah. And this is that. Went through it and then and it's my pleasure to say that the attributes that I've just listed, all of you men possess. Congratulations, blah, blah, blah. And I remember like, it's indescribable, I think, because, and that's in that moment, it wasn't about everyone else. It was just like, to me, it was me getting across the line for me a bit, if that makes sense. And I started to realize like, okay, so you've now proven yourself because you stuck to this task, you stayed with it, and now, you've come out the other end. And I remember ringing Mum, she was just over the moon. Both the folks they thought it was great. Like every time they'd see me, you could see that they were so proud and it meant something. And the further I went through my career, you learn just wearing the flag is such an honor.
Absolutely.
Like everyone's just walking the same direction, for the same goal. And for you to achieve that goal, everyone around you has to be good. There's that saying, your candle doesn't burn brighter if you blow the one next to you out. The military's job is to light up a room. So if you're the type of character that blows a candle out, you're not wanted. You know what I mean? Like pack your bags and go home. So, and like I remember like having my expectations changed. I think because you don't know what to expect. You got guys all shapes, sizes, builds. You've got guys with degrees, and you've got guys who are tradesmen. You've got guys who've just chosen that path, and then you got guys like me who sort of thought it was their last chance. Which now I look back, it's wild because I was just like 24
I know,
when I joined.
It's insane, right?
Yeah.
But you've got that process, and that mindset, but ultimately it's that mindset that pushed you into something as extreme and as elite as the Commandos, right?
Yeah, well, I think it had to be. I think, I just don't think it would have been fulfilling if it wasn't. You know what I mean? Like you get the. I've noticed this, and you would have noticed this as your career progressed as well. You meet a lot of people that have achieved enormous amounts, are wildly successful, amazing at what they do, and they're all really cool. You know what I mean? Like none of them, you just like, how is this guy doing everything so amazingly, effortlessly? And the only thing I can put it down to is because they found something that is their passion, and they've got nothing to prove.
Yeah, that's right.
They've scored the runs. They don't have to worry about it.
And I don't know what it's like for the Aussie Defence Force, but where I stepped up from the Marines into a Special Forces role, it's like, wow, the responsibility. You're taking on different roles and, more responsible roles and roles that are just like given to you to go, right, we don't want to know what goes on. Just go and get the job done. Yeah, just do it.
Have to be able to do it unsupervised, and you don't need orders to do it. Like, you're kind of expected to know what to do with it or to work it out. You know what I mean? And to do it in a way where you could have the highest ranking official in the military watching you the whole time. You know what I mean? That's the level of trust. And I found that like really empowering when we're going through the cycles, but it lifts your game. You know what I mean? You hang out with people who have similar interests and who are all striving to be better, your game just lifts. You know what I mean? Your attitude changes. It's something that, and that's one of the things that world sort of does. But when I first got there, I was still young, I still had plenty of
young, naive, keen,
you think it's the toughest guy, you're in a thing that's going to ask a lot of you when it comes to combat, so I've got to be ready we've all got to be ready type thing. And you're like, it's not that. It's like EQ is the new tough. You've now got to know how to control your emotions and use them effectively in each environment, which I think is that Alpha Plus mindset. Is like, you've got to be willing to go there, but you've also got to have the intelligence to know when you have to go there. Because, like, most people that you can see that will go there, there's like one time in 1,000 that you might need to.
And also, I think what's super powerful about, emotional intelligence is when positive people around you take charge of your emotions, to push you through that door, to get you, to the other side of where you need to be. But also being emotionally intelligent enough to realize when someone else is struggling emotionally and you come along and you help them, harness that emotion to achieve whatever's in front of you. God, that's when trust, that's when a bond takes place. That's when I truly believe when emotional intelligence is fused, that's when you can really trust that person. Wow, I've let that person, or that person's taking control of my emotions. There's that bond. There's that trust. Bang, it's sealed.
Yeah. They're in there. And I mean, like, I think a big hurdle for me when it came to that was, it's almost like as a person I'd changed before I was going in, and I'd accepted that change. I was now going to be Damien the soldier, and that guy had to be tough. He had to have all these different attributes. He has to do all the things that made that, which just, you're just kind of wearing a mask the whole time. And I think
it's a defense mechanism, isn't it?
Yeah, essentially. And in defense is probably 20.
Putting on your body armor, you're putting on your mask, you're ready to go.
But like I learned when we were on second deployment, we'd done a little soiree to Fiji. But I was on my deployment to East Timor, and I just kind of got tired of the tough thing. When East Timor's gorgeous. It's an Indonesian island just north of Australia, coral reef all around it. We were doing a pretty pedestrian, like, peacekeeping style job. So we're just working out a lot. It was near a beach, and I slipped back into just being the surfer from the Central Coast. Like, I stopped talking in a military way. I started unless I needed to, you obviously got to know when to need it to. And I found then, like, people gravitated to the freedom of that. And I found it got the best out of me because I was just being me.
It's refreshing, right?
Yeah. Well, like, that's it's the thing. You don't have to add anything. You don't have to change anything. If someone doesn't like your opinion, that's cool. If you don't like someone else's, that's cool as well.
So you've got all your life in order. Everything's going to plan. You're happy. You found your belonging, and then you deployed to Afghanistan. And in April of 2009,
Boom,
bam! Your whole world is literally flipped upside down, along with yourself. Can you take us back to that IED strike and what you can remember from that blast?
I can remember as much as you can. I got nothing.
Wow, yeah,
We got
nothing.
a zero on it. Like I've read the reports of the days before. We were in a 9-hour firefight the day of. I can't remember any of it. I can't. Yeah, I've got little bits of parts that I can remember different contacts that we had and a couple of different spots Overwatch positions and some small conversations, but not the group orders. I remember an orders group that we had getting shot up that I thought was the day of, but it was nearly a week earlier. So, yeah, but we're essentially.
So, what's the first memory that you have?
As in Germany. I was in a hospital.
So you've been the incident that happened. You're on a patrol, bang, you get blown up, and the next memory after that is you're in Germany.
Yeah, hospital in Germany, and for a bit of context, I got hit at about 10 o'clock, 10:30. My vehicle jumped, did a 90-degree turn. Guy next to me blew his eardrum out. Kid in the back was knocked out as well. Woke up, they came. My right leg was gone. Left was broken really badly. It's the coolest X-ray, and I can't find it now. I don't know where it's gone, but it looks bad. My right elbow was hanging out somewhere around here. The bones were broken. The hand was busted. This arm, that thumb. My nose was shattered. Cut a little bit of cosmetic damage.
Where were you when the explosion happened?
So I was driving the SRV.
You were driving,
yeah.
So you were in the driver's. So you got the full brunt of it.
Yeah, so it went off on the front right wheel. And I mean, that's something that took me a while to actually ask. You know what I mean? Just because you do what you can to minimize risk. You find a war. That's the best thing you can do is make sure that you're doing as much as you can to minimize the risk of something like that happening. So we were driving in each other's wheel tracks, no light, everyone wearing night vision. Obviously you can hear the cars, but if you're on the side of a mountain, it's still hard to shoot at. We're traveling in a period of darkness as well. So yeah, I was looking through, and I had to say, eventually to one of the guys the guy was next to me, who this is wild. We grew up 3 suburbs away from each other. He's a year younger than me, and we'd never met. And we now are both out of the army. We live 2 suburbs away from each other, and every now and then we have beers. But yeah, I remember saying to him and just going, look, all right, I need you to tell me the truth about this. Did I fall asleep? We'd been up the day 10 days earlier.
So you're beating yourself up automatically. You're beating yourself up.
I was like, how did I do it?
You're not fucking asleep, mate. You're fucking driving a vehicle. You're probably on a hyper alert, which I know that you do, and I don't care. Food fatigue. You're there, right? You're present, especially through the green light. Through the MVGs. No way that you fell asleep, bro. You're on.
So that was what I was thinking. I was like, how, and that's also if that was the case, all I was thinking was that's the biggest. That fuck up could have cost someone. I'm cool with me. I'm 100% cool with me getting hit. But if that was to cost one of the other guys and I had fallen and he just goes, no, we were driving in the tracks. But where we were, there was little little boulders and we were kind of getting bottlenecked through. So, and you kind of, because you can see the tracks and go as close as possible to it. And he just goes, no, well, because we were like fifth or sixth car in the convoy moving up. There'd been ATVs go up, and one of the boys was like, he was literally kneeling down looking back at it after saying to the boss, I think we should sweep this hill before we go up. And the boss apparently said, look, mate, what's your fascination with sweeping hills? And he but this is also like I remember being in the middle of like the first massive contact that we had. We were behind an embankment, and he was holding his rifle in the middle of the rifle, just casually ambling over to our car, like literally as if he was about to give us a sandwich. All right, boys. So he's a Welsh bloke, really cool guy, and he's this and blah 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 blah, and just wanders on back like as if he was out in the park. And I thought, this guy's all right. So that's how cool you have to be when you're in like a high level of combat. All right, sweet. We've got the bar.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the poor thing, I feel worse for that guy because it was his first deployment doing that role, and he didn't know whether he should push back. And at that stage in our unit's involvement in Afghanistan, the officer of command would say, we need troops here, here, here on a map, and then go recon and sniper group, form a path. Whereas then it went, we need this objective. We've got these two buildings. How can we get there safely? So it sort of flipped after mine, but so I was pretty messed up. But I remember asking, like you ask everyone, and I left time. This is the weirdest thing, and I mean, one of the boys is passed. He committed suicide years later, and he was sort of on the way to there. But he was one of the ones that I went to, and I said, look, I wanted to talk to you about it, but I didn't want you to have to go back there. And I was on the ground for 56 minutes. By all accounts, he woke up the next day with just blood all over his cams. He couldn't even take his cams off because he tapped me on the shoulder. They had to, because both arms were broken so badly, they wouldn't let me on the helo without the arms folded across my chest. And his name's Ian Turner, and Turns just goes, all right. It's like, you got an elbow hanging out. And he's like, apparently I didn't take that as well as some of the other stuff, but, he kind of tapped me and just said goodbye because he thought it was too far gone. There's enough fluid had gone through me. Like, it was sort of just, he was emotionally processing the fact that, I wasn't going to make it. And I remember talking to him about it, and I had to ask this because he's just one of those guys who would just tell you straight out. So I was like, all right, Turns. So did I cry like a bitch? Like, what was it? Because you never know. You never know what anyone's going to be like in a situation until they're in it. And I'm like, bro, did I? And he's like, no, man, you actually like took it pretty well. Like, I mean, really, like, was I conscious? And then once it had opened, it turned out that we were waiting for, it was 8 years at that stage to talk to each other about something. And both of us wanted to talk to the other person about it, but were thinking that we were protecting that person from having to live it.
And did that help you through your recovery, talking to these people, or did that come later on down the line?
I mean, to be honest, I think the guilt was probably the most important part of my recovery. Like
the guilt was the most important.
Wow. I mean, looking back, I would say so. That and just the mindset of I'm making progress if it hurts. You know what I mean? Like and then you've got doctors who are just used to dealing with punters who go in with a sore knee or whatever. And then I'm like, I don't really care what you guys have got to do. I'm going to be doing this. You're either going to be someone who's on the journey with me to do this, or I'm going to find someone who is. You know what I mean? Like, and so I never really looked at a lot of because to me, I was still me. I knew, but I definitely knew that everyone on that night saw something they were never going to unsee. And apparently the time where every now and then, because they had moved to white light to save me, they'd done everything they could, tourniquets and stuff like that. But the village, because you can hear what they're saying on their icon radios, there was a huge conference. Like, there was way more of them than we originally thought, but we're basically saying, let's light them up. So everyone's posturing, getting ready. If one shot got fired, the US chopper wouldn't have got me out and I'd be dead. At the minute the troops in contact would have happened, that rings through. I'm a flag on my parents' mantelpiece.
And what did you manage to keep then? What did you lose and what did you manage to keep? Because it was looking pretty grim at one moment that you're going to lose your arms.
Yeah. So when my parents found out, the word was he's really low single-digit percentage chance of living. And if he does, it's going to be a triple amputee. And at that stage, I was at Camp Bastion, which is the UK base, with the trauma team under a space blanket. And if I couldn't hold my body heat, I was gone. So that was when they found out. And I mean, it's so disjointed when you get back. But to me, I woke up and I was still me.
You seem to have tackled it with a super positive mindset. Do you think if you hadn't, do you think there's any grey areas here, or do you think you stoop to the lowest of the lows where you don't want to be here anymore? And did that mindset ever take charge?
I got to dark places through it. Yeah, I definitely did, but not in the initial phases. For me, were like I remember having this convo with my dad because he's always said you've never used your brain. It's just disappointing. He walked in with this great big grin on his face. I'm like smiling at him, we're having a laugh, like in a hospital, and he goes, "Well, you got to use your brain now, don't you?"
Good old dad.
You got me, Stevie. Hey, yeah, I'm gonna now. And then, you're sort of mapping out. All right, we've got to change. We've got to do different things. But to me, the most important thing was there's a group of guys who have gone through something that I can't imagine seeing, let alone it being something you care about. And they've somehow kept me alive. So the mess that I could see, I saw as the result of people's effort on the ground, which I still see it as that. It's what it is. So I've got to try and do something that then has them know how good of a job they've done. So to me, I then had a finite timeline of when they were flying home. And I had to be up, walking, standing in a pair of jeans so you couldn't see prosthetic legs. And it didn't matter what it took. And then, there were bits where, it hurts a lot.
That was your goal. That was your next objective. That was your next mission,
that
right?
Was it.
Which, again, we talk about purpose. It's and you've done everything that you can to make sure that you've done that.
Yeah. And I mean, I was by all accounts, I was probably one of the worst patients in the history of North Shore Private Hospital because I was just uncompromising with it. If I didn't think, and right or wrong, didn't think that someone was aligned with my goals, I would remove them from the process or ignore their advice. I'd just go, all right, I've been through enough to know where I'm going with this. I know my limits. You don't. There's a picture of me 5 weeks after on a prosthetic that you're not really supposed to weight bear through. But I was like, I'm going down the hall on this because so I'm on one of those walkers pushing it along with the thing, and there's just concerned faces
dragging his prosthetic leg along.
Yeah, well, and I'm just like, no, well, okay, cool. Well, this is what we've got to do. This arm's still plated at the time. There's a lot of stuff going wrong with it, but I was like, I'm not going to heal laying down. And they're like, you got to rest. You got to rest. And I'm like, everyone tells me to rest. Go home, you rest. Get it up. I got stuff to do.
Talk about using rehab and, reshaping your life and coming out the other side. With a positive mindset that you have. You went, I'm looking at my notes in front of me. You got a golfing career and a snowboarding career. Where the hell did that come from? Where the hell did you just think to yourself, right? Because you're actually extremely good with both, aren't you? It says here that you are the third multi-amputee golfer, third-ranked multi-amputee golfer in the world. Just to walk again and live your life and try and be normal wasn't enough for you. Yeah. You then had to go on and do these amazing things. And we can talk about the Invictus Games, but just that rehab really, you used that to your advantage.
I mean, that's the thing. I had the tools. You know what I mean? That's one thing the Special Forces does. It just prepares you for stuff like that. You know what I mean? Hard then just becomes part of the process. And then people are going, and it was a consistent thing, but guys from our unit that got hurt, the medical staff, after a few years, got used to the fact that they would heal quickly. They'd be doing things at crazy paces. And I mean, I just need something to keep me going.
Actor as well. Actor. You're an actor. How do you get into to all of this and then become, again, the best at what you do with no legs?
I left the army. I had done a winter sports camp, and snowboarding was the closest thing I could get to surfing. I went too hard on my second tour to Utah. I was riding with Team Utah's adaptive snowboarding team, and I compression fractured my back, my L2, which, I mean, now I've fractured something on everything, so kind of completed a picture. Then I came back and I was doing well. The motivational speaking, I feel that like it's my responsibility after being through something that's that complex to share what it looks like from the inside of the bottle. You know, I mean, everyone can read the outside, so it's my job to tell them what's on the inside. And I find that vulnerability is a really important part of that. You know, people seeing the true you, which is when I really feel like the last bits of armor came off. You know, I can't control what's, of all things that come into fashion, skinny jeans when you're wearing prosthetics that are tiny. You know what I mean? Like, then you start going, well, I can't care about what people think now. You know, it's now just, I've got to do things for the right reason. And at the end, when I was young, I probably would have wanted to be an actor. You know, I loved performing, except it was never something that, my dad was big on the numbers and, in the US, people who are on SAG, there's how many of them? There's 3% of them that are making enough money to like provide an income, and they're the top 100,000. You know what I mean? Like it's wild. But yeah, I went to an acting school, just going, I just want to do it because no one thinks I can. And all right, I'm going to give you the secret to it. With any of these things, no one expects a disabled guy to, which is funny. It's ironic that I've said I don't care what anyone thinks, and now I've started that with what people think. No one expects a disabled guy to do it anyway. So you do it, you win. You don't do it, you haven't disappointed anyone. Like I play golf now with guys who, like, I hit the ball a long way. I've just always had the talent to hit a big ball, and now it's just controlling that's been the fun bit. I've built a set of prosthetics around it, but like, so I play other guys who are big hitters. If we both get one, and I turn to you, and we're kind of nodding, and we know it's on. This guy's got two options, right? One, I outdrove him, and you got outdriven by a double amputee. The other option is you outdrove a handicapped guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you're onto a lose-lose.
Yeah, that's it. You're just always fighting a lose-lose. So and the hacksaw thing was like this, a similar sort of thing. I mean, I learned that, I wasn't as good an actor as I thought I would have been growing up. I'd spent 2 years at school, and then one of my teachers was auditioning for it. And then I just got on the set, and I don't know if you might have come across John Isles. He's one of our ex SAS blokes who works in that sort of industry, and so he was the weapons tech. We turn up for a week. I got Vince Vaughn, Sam Worthington. I'm literally thinking I've died and just gone to this Hollywood, and then like Spider-Man standing over there, who you can't say Spider-Man near him, but yeah. And then I know the weapons tech. Hey John, how you going, man? Like, and then all of a sudden I felt comfortable in that world, and yeah, it's a cool story to be a part of. So,
do you know what? Your story is written in your book, and if people want to continue with knowing the full story and your amazing mindset, because we are running out of time here, unfortunately. But you wrote an autobiography, which I would hugely recommend to everyone, because I could speak to you for hours, mate, and we still wouldn't have enough time. It's called Without Warning. When did you write that, and what can we expect in the book?
I wrote it in 2012, and it focuses primarily like on how I got to the space that I was in. And then I wanted to take everyone, again, I saw it as my responsibility. I wanted everyone who's reading the book to understand the spaces. So there's some language in it that is quite colorful. There are some opinions that I don't think I would agree with. Like, if I was to rewrite the story now, it would be a completely different looking book. But just unapologetically take someone into the spot, because, if I'm reading a book about someone who's been through something that's difficult, you know, I don't want to know what the colourful roses look like or something of that sort, you know what I mean? Like, I want to know the bits that you can't see, you know. So I really tried to sort of communicate that when I was writing it. So there's bits of it that I just think, oh my God, why?
Pick it up. That's what I say to everyone. Pick it up. Damien, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, talking with you. Like I said, I could chat with you for hours. It's such an honour, and it's refreshing for me to speak with one of my own as well, and to have you on here, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Thank
mate.
You, Damien. Appreciate it, bud.
Thanks so much for joining me on Headgame. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our incredible stories, and leave me a review wherever you're listening. I'm Middleton. Catch you again next time.